For those of you who have not been following my channels, I have just returned to the US after spending 7 months abroad for various reasons. I wanted to grow the channel and I wanted to be as far away from Biden's America as I could. But in any case, I wanted to sum up my experiences and what I have seen during 7 months having returned to the US. So first of all, why did I go? Mainly to the Thai kingdom and Hungary, the Siam I like to call it, and a part of the Austro-Hungarian kingdom, mostly the eastern part. These countries are unique partly because they are going to largely stay outside of World War III. In my opinion, we have been in this war since the year 2000, when there was a lockdown, which in my opinion is not only entirely unprecedented, but fully illegal. Now, in this case, both of these countries have had some kind of a lockdown. In the case of Hungary, not as bad as either the US or the Siam or Austria, to be frank, because the Austrian side is in bad shape. They had a terrible lockdown and people were fined if they didn't comply with the forced jabbing and all that. But these two countries are basically neutral. They are going to stay out of trouble, and I felt safe. First and foremost, I didn't even want to do Europe. My usual route is to take a pause in Europe as I fly to the Far East, and that typically meant either Amsterdam or Paris, sometimes even London. I had been harassed out of London a long time ago. My last trip to Amsterdam was in 2018. I got harassed at the airport also, after some 2 decades of visiting the country regularly without any problem. So that left me with Paris and Budapest, and Paris is out of the game, or was out of it, by last year, 2024. The circus with the relentless attacks on Christians and whites, setting fire to the Notre Dame, the mass around the Olympics. I just did not see a point of paying all that money to go into that mass and possibly even take a risk. So when I decided to do a bit of Europe, the choice was Budapest. I think it's a great stopover destination. Paris also used to be good, but they lost my luggage twice on straight flights from New York to Paris without any transfer. So that should tell you a little bit about how far they have declined as a formerly first world country. The Thai kingdom, or the Siam, had been subjected to the ambition of foreign empires before. They had been attacked by the Burmese, I believe, more than once. But what's most interesting is that during the last 100, 200 years, they were never fully colonized. The French took a lot of land away from them, but they were never fully colonized. The Chinese entered the country with an army some time ago, and the Thai refused to fight back. They treated them as a friend, and perhaps out of embarrassment, the Chinese turned back. The Japanese also landed in Bangkok during World War II with a plan on an invasion. The few Japanese that landed returned to Tokyo, reporting that there was no need for an invasion. It's a fantastic society if you just look at how they use hospitality to deflect aggression in others. That's a unique feature of Thai society that I have not seen anywhere else. And then there is Hungary. Hungary is totally different. They used to be 3 times the size that they are, but even then they've never been a large empire. And yet they took on the Mongols, the Turks, and the Soviet Union, and all 3 were routed after a long, miserable fight, which in each case claimed horrendous blood sacrifice. Roughly half the country was exterminated by the Mongols. Then after centuries of reorganization, the Turks also exterminated half. And then there was World War II. The Allies leveled Budapest. About 70% of the city was destroyed. And then they launched a revolution against the Soviets in 1956. 10,000 people died in a matter of days. Countless were arrested and horrifically tortured in the following years. And yet they kept on fighting, and they were the ones who broke through the Iron Curtain in 1989. Yes, the Polish Solidarity movement helped, the Italians electing a Polish Pope helped, perhaps even the rioting in Prague in 1968 did something, but the bulk of the weight fell on the Hungarians in breaking down the Soviet Empire and breaking through the Eastern Bloc and the Iron Curtain. So this is something I respected, and I was there in 2017 the last time, and I was curious as to how the country would fare today, especially under Orban, which once again shows the fighting spirit of these people, because as tiny as the country is, they have taken a kind of a leadership role in turning things around in the politically correct left or west and on the European continent itself. First, getting in and out. Getting into Bangkok, it's a crowded airport, but it's incredible how much modernization the Thai government has been able to achieve. I would say that's still my favorite airport to get in or out. I am vehemently opposed to the cancer machine or the X-ray machine, millimeter machine, or however you want to call it. And they have that. They also have the magnetic gate. And you can basically just tell them that you don't want to go into the X-ray machine. They have no problem with it. They say, okay, go through the magnetic gate. So they are really cool. The airport is very nice, one of the nicest airports in the world, and they put carpets everywhere, so you don't have to take your shoes off. I had a good time with them. Also, if you land in Phuket, it's a much smaller, much more bare bones airport. But again, they are not going to humiliate you. You don't have to take your shoes off. Hungary is much lower than that. I was not happy with the Budapest airport. On the way out, it's incredibly quick. You basically don't even need to deal with a person depending upon the kind of passport you have. You just swipe your passport and you go. But boarding on the way back was not that easy. They take your shoes off, they humiliate you in that way. There's garbage all over the place. The floors didn't have any carpeting on them. They were dirty and nasty. There were pieces of paper and garbage thrown on the floor. They have a magnetic gate, and they don't have a cancer machine, but they have some kind of a higher powered magnetic wall, for lack of a better description. I was not selected to go in. Some of the younger people were selected. It does not seem to me as harmful as an X-ray machine, and it's not an X-ray machine. So I would say the airport in Budapest is okay, but it's definitely not my favorite. During the trip between Bangkok and Budapest, I had to transfer in Istanbul in Turkey. It was my last trip to Turkey. It was really bad. They were trying to put me into the cancer machine. We were arguing for 10 minutes. They called a supervisor, and finally I ended up not going into the cancer machine. Anyway, they gave me a pat down, and this was the same kind of fight I had at Heathrow in London some years ago, and I refused to back down. There were also some side trips that I should mention. I went to Phuket and Pattaya in the Siam. Phuket was a huge letdown. This place is a natural marvel, and it should be treasured for that. But instead, the Thai government is just letting it languish. They are trying to pump the tourist revenues up to the sky, developing everything, building hotels on the mountainside. There is garbage everywhere. There is no recycling. There is no green environment, any kind of electric scooter rentals or bicycles. I actually bought a bicycle and was practically the only one in town riding it. This was a great disappointment. The only positive part was the dog sanctuary. They have this animal shelter, if you want to call it that, but it looks more like a fancy resort with beautiful grass, and they have a pond and everything. If I was a dog, I would love to live there. Even as a human, I might not mind it. And some people do vacations, renting property nearby so that they can visit the dogs, and you are permitted to volunteer to walk the dogs and make friends with them. So it is an experience, and that was the best part of Phuket, even though Phuket itself was not something I would want to repeat, especially not Patong Beach, which is now totally halal. It has been taken over by the Middle East, and not in a good way. The other trip to Pattaya, where I spent a whole month, was the highlight of the whole trip. I used to stay in central Pattaya, which is too dirty, too nasty, it's noisy, and I never liked it that much. It's only good for a long weekend. But this time around, I stayed on the southern edge of what is still regarded as in Pattaya. It's actually a pretty upscale and opulent place with a lot of luxury condos and nice hotels. And the place is an absolute paradise. And you can call a Bolt car from your home for $2. They take you door to door into downtown. It's actually less money than you would be paying for the SkyTrain in the middle of Bangkok. And I really love that. I enjoyed that sort of suburban environment, lots of good food, lots of local food, local farmers, and also markets nearby where you can walk, or you could just hire a Bolt car. They were really inexpensive. Regards to Budapest, I did a side trip also. I went to Dalmatia, to the area called by the Romans Spalata. It's currently called Split. That's also the area where Ragusa/Dubrovnik is located. It is an area that had been developed by the Italians at first during the Roman times, and then later on under Venice they returned and built more modern architecture. You still can see many Roman ruins, and one of the Roman palaces is still in town in Split today. So it's a very picturesque and charming place to go. But I was really unhappy with the food, unhappy with the Croats' behaviors. They are reckless, violent drivers. Not a fun place to visit, in my opinion, even though it is beautiful, and it's also very inexpensive. As far as staying is concerned, I would say the Siam simply rules. I paid less money than I paid in Budapest. It's definitely cheaper, and I got a whole lot more. So it's pay less and get more. You would get, for $800-900 a month, you would get a very modern studio or one bedroom, often with exceptional views, with skyline views, and you would invariably get a very nice pool, either a small clean pool, which I had, or one of the rentals in Bangkok had a really big pool. I don't know how many feet, maybe 30 yards, I would say. So really, really nice pool with the views of the city, skyline and everything. I had a gym, very clean, very nicely maintained gym, and in both places. And in Budapest, it's more like you can get some really large old apartments with excellent noise isolation and quiet, but they don't give you a gym or a pool mostly anywhere. Of course, you are in a city where you are surrounded by famous spas and thermal places where you can enjoy water and sauna and so on. But overall, you get less in Budapest and you have to pay more. Riding around, I took my bike helmet and I took it around the world without ever wearing it. Unfortunately, I hoped to ride in Phuket and also Pattaya. I used to rent scooters there. The scooter rentals are still very good. You can get a basic scooter for $125 or $150 a month, so it's really cheap. But unfortunately, they have changed the laws. You now have to obtain an international driver license, which is a translation of your English language American license into English. This is another stupid idea from the Thai government. They want you to pay money, but it's an annoyance because you have to stand online all day long. You have to go down to some government office and wait there. So I decided to just not do it. Some people rent scooters and ride them illegally, and then when the cops pull you over, you give them $50. So it's all a money racket, and it's just an annoyance. I did not rent anything. I purchased a bicycle for cheap. It was about $120 with a lock for Phuket, and that's what I had been riding around. I'd say it's best to pack your own scooter, and I was going to pack my own scooter as well, but it was in the last moment, a day before takeoff, that I realized that I bought a new piece of luggage and it was too short to take the scooter, so I had to leave it at home. In Hungary, there is a phenomenal riding environment. In Budapest, you have bike lanes everywhere. You can rent electric scooters and all kinds of bicycles on every street corner. Also, the public transportation was phenomenal. You pay $28 and you have a pass for a month to get on absolutely anything, no limit. This is cheaper than even Bangkok. So I really loved it. I would return for it, and it's good for the environment. This is the other thing about what the Thai government is doing. The environment of the Siam is being destroyed, and it's tough to watch this. There is garbage everywhere. There's no real push toward a cleaner form of transportation, no help for spreading the electric scooter or the bike rentals, no alternatives, and they are not building much of any public transportation. The only thing I did see was that the buses have been completely updated throughout Bangkok. So the old smoky buses you don't see anymore. They are all new buses. And if you live near the SkyTrain is a beautiful, very recent, very cultured transportation tool that you can use. It's actually not cheap, because unlike in New York where you pay $3 to get in, but then you can travel as long as you want to, you can transfer to any other subway line. That's not how Bangkok works. Depending upon how far you go, you may be charged a little over $1 to over $3, and every time you transfer you have to pay again. So it's actually at least as expensive as New York to get around, although the train system is much newer, much cleaner, and it's a much more cultured environment. You are definitely not going to be pushed onto the train. There are no homeless people sleeping anywhere. Overall, the environment is something for which Hungary receives the highest marks that I can give. I was just blown away. I did not expect to land in a first world society. Back in 2017, Hungary was still solidly in the second world. That's not the case anymore. What Orban and his people have accomplished is heroic and without precedent anywhere. I went over to Croatia. Croatia was never under Soviet occupation. They were never bombed into the ground. They had plenty of money even in the Cold War era. They could freely travel, work in Western countries, bring back the money, invest locally, and yet the country looks awful. It's a second world country. Everything is shoddy, dirty. It's not a happy place. The capital city, Zagreb, is nothing like Budapest, which has been mostly renovated. Even in 2017, I did not think they would renovate Budapest, especially all of those old palaces and buildings that are full of ornate sculptures and decorations. Some of it is still in need of more work, but I would say about 70% of the most gorgeous old buildings have been completely restored. And even what has not is being worked on. I saw construction, renovation everywhere. In Bangkok, that's not the case, but you see a bit of a middle class rising. So here and there, you see some people who are not wealthy. There have always been wealthy people in Bangkok, but now they have some not so wealthy but professional people riding the $10,000 electric moped or whatever, an electric car sitting out in boutiques, and there are more and more of these relatively pricey stores around. They are actually more expensive than Budapest. Budapest is maybe slightly more expensive for food, but the food is really good. The food was really good in both places. For the Siam, I would say especially Bangkok would be my favorite. It's mostly the local Thai food that are my favorite. It's certainly worth a stay and worth a trip because it's a great cuisine. As far as dessert is concerned, it's really not their forte. And with the kind of tropical fruits they have, they never needed to develop a Western style dessert cuisine like the Austro-Hungarian or the French or the Italian. But you do have a few luxury places that make pretty good French style pastry. You have a break here and there, but only in Bangkok. Also in Bangkok, they have these magnificent shopping towers. Not many of them, but in addition to Siam Paragon, I discovered some other places, and I do recommend that you get lost in them. You could certainly spend an entire vacation doing nothing but eating and shopping in Bangkok. In Budapest, the things to do are not so much for shopping, although I loaded up on underwear because all kinds of quality brands from Britain, Italy, and Germany are costing half as much as I would pay on Amazon for basic US stuff. So US is horrendously overpriced and the quality is not that great. You can get some discount in Budapest as well, but the city is not so much about shopping. It's more like exploring the history, all the museums, the architecture, enjoying the bathhouses, the natural thermal baths, because the city is full of these naturally warm springs, some of them mildly radioactive, and they have a medicinal property. In addition to that, not so much during the cold season as I was visiting, but during the summer, you can definitely enjoy a party atmosphere. There are lots of tourists. Even in the winter, there were quite a number of them. But during the warm season, there's a whole lot more, and they have all kinds of concerts and festivals. So unlike Vienna, which is a closed environment, unless you know people, you're not going to be invited into this inner environment where everything happens. It's very much more an open society in Budapest, and also costs a good deal less than Vienna. The desserts were great. Those were my favorite. These are some of the best desserts in the world, but they are not international. You are getting local Austro-Hungarian fare, a little bit of French, a little bit of Italian. But I would say that overall for food, I still do prefer New York, because in New York I can get practically anything. I can get the Thai food, I can get the Hungarian, whatever. Not always the best quality, but if you know where to go, you can get very good quality food, not to mention online ordering as well. As far as prices are concerned, the cost of medical treatments at Bumrungrad Hospital in Bangkok, which used to save me so much money, I could save back the cost of the flight. So I used to fly there for nothing because I would get my dentistry and dermatology and whatever done over there for pennies on the dollar. That is all gone. Now they are charging just to talk to you. They were quoting me a price slightly higher than what my Park Avenue dentist was quoting. So the quality is still there, but the prices are now American prices. You can't save any money. And the prices of everything else have gone up, although not nearly as much as in the US. So it's still a much cheaper place to stay than the US, but prices are going up so fast it makes your head spin. Same thing in Budapest, much more expensive than it used to be. I would say though that the food is still half price or even a third of US price, and you still have those really classy restaurants and high-end cafes like the New York Cafe, the Roos Forum, a bunch of other places where you can still get somewhat of a discount and dine in a palace. They have been restored and they are just as gorgeous as ever. Of course, Vienna has the same thing. Vienna is more in line with the US prices, so you will not save a penny going there. Although I did check Vienna's prices for stays, and for Airbnb and hotels, they are actually cheaper than the US. Pretty much the same as you would pay in Budapest, which I was glad to see. Again, I should mention Croatia was really cheap food-wise. In fact, hysterically cheap. There were prices. They have these German and Austrian chocolates and beer and stuff. Italian style meats like the prosciutto, pancetta, you can get them for pennies literally. So if you don't mind cooking at home, it's a great place to be. And Dalmatia has a lot of local oranges. So I was making crepe de Suzette almost every day. I should mention that I visited Medjugorje in Bosnia, and I would say it was maybe second to Pattaya. I really enjoyed my stay there. Also very, very cheap, and the atmosphere is all revolving around the Virgin Mary and Christianity, which I guess clicks with me very well. It might not click with everybody else, but I really had a good time there. The prices are dirt cheap, and they have some upscale boutiques and places, not like a city, not like Budapest or Bangkok, but they have some decent places to eat, and the people are just really nice. Imagine living in a village that has become a world destination to visit the Virgin Mary. The kind of people that go there, they are at least at some level to something really spiritual. This is their industry. There's no heavy industry. There are some really charming old houses there. I did not like the new architecture, but they still have a lot of the charming old stone houses and just a very unique environment. Very hilly, you can climb up to places and look down. So this would be a good place not just to visit the Virgin Mary, but also to bring a mountain bike. Unfortunately, I did not see any rentals, but I was there in the winter, so many of the businesses weren't even open. The warm season starts somewhere around April, and that's when the place really gets going. It is only crazy lunatics like myself who would go there in January. This is what I have to say about the trip. I am now back in the US, and my head is buzzing looking at the prices.